Thank you for doing this interview with us. So just tell us your name and your occupation.
So my name is Mary Fuller and I'm a teacher, and I'm the base teacher for the ASD class, which we call Neidín in Killarney Community College.
So talk about when and why you went into this occupation.
Into the ASD class?
Yes.
Well, I had been working here for a few years in learning support and resource, and the principal that in school 5 years ago, this month, 5 years ago, asked me if I would be interested in setting up a class for students on the autistic spectrum. So it was something I'd never considered. I had worked with students with autism before, but not in a specific unit. They would have been in general classes. So I love a challenge, and I was ready for a challenge, so I said I'd be honoured.
Lovely. So tell us about the children that you deal with from day to day. So from when you started until now. So what have you learned really from?
I suppose the big thing I've learned is that people on the spectrum are all very different. So it's like the rainbow. You've all different colours, all different shades. And there's a saying that one person with autism, one person with autism. There are similarities, but there are huge individual differences. I've learned that a lot of it has got to do with anxiety management, because autistic students are trying to fit into what is called the neurotypical world, and in a mainstream school there's an awful lot going on. So anxiety management would be a big part of it. And the other thing I've learned is that this is our 5th year in Neidín. We call it Neidín because it's the Irish for little nest, so that people kind of come in, get nurtured, get a bit of strength, fly out when they are ready to, and maybe need to come back in again for time out or just a bit of extra help with homework, classwork. Each year of the 5 years has looked different. So our first 2 students that we started with accessed very little mainstream classes for one of the students. The other student accessed some mainstream classes, and this year we have 2 students who are nearly in all mainstream classes but come to Neidín for breaks or for one class of resource or sensory circuits, which again is about anxiety management, each day.
So you generally would work in an ASD unit. So the other 3 conditions that we're studying, like ADHD, dyslexia and dyspraxia, have you worked with students with those conditions before?
I have, yeah, and sometimes students with autism can have any variation of those as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of combined.
So talk about the advancements made since you started compared to now. So that would be running back to even when you were in college studying until this point.
I suppose technology is probably the biggest advancement, in that it was a big deal when I started in learning support if somebody couldn't write physically because of dyspraxia or just stress or anxiety, whatever. Whereas now people can have access to technology and type their work or speak it and it'll type up for them. That has been a big. Also the big change is, I suppose, it used to be a special class, where now people with additional needs are in every class. And like I say, students in Neidín can access mainstream classes if that works for them, or they can access them in Neidín or in smaller groups. So it's ever changing, really, I suppose.
Yeah. Tell us about the main challenges you witness the students that you'd be working with face from a day-to-day basis.
Noise. I'm thinking from a very good example. I did a course with Middleton Autism Centre in Armagh. They came to us, to Kerry, and did it, and it was likened to a bottle of Coke. And so a student with autism is afraid to go to sleep because they're afraid they won't wake up, so that fizzes it a bit. Then they're afraid of their alarm in the morning because it sounds like a fire alarm, that fizzes it another bit. they don't really like wearing the school uniform. This is now, not the one person, but
Of course,
generally,
yeah.
because it itches them or whatever, they have to be on a bus with somebody that irritates them maybe. So by the time they're coming in the school door, that fizz is ready to blow the cork off the bottle of Coke. That's kind of, and then they're moving from class to class. Predictability and consistency are the two main strategies for autism studies. And if you think of having potentially 6 different teachers every day, with each having their own way of teaching their subject, different subjects, corridors, it's an assault on their senses. They're trying to cope with a lot, not understanding maybe jokes that other people are telling, trying to fit into a world. And interestingly, since COVID, I've learned that the COVID world suited our students mostly, because for once they weren't trying to fit in to a world where everyone else seems to get the rules and they don't. And it suited them being at home, not having to get on the bus, not having to put on the uniform, those kind of things. It's fascinating.
So what challenges have you faced? So obviously being confronted with a job like yourself, obviously you've grown used to how it works, but what challenges did you witness yourself face from starting to this point?
I suppose it was learning about it, upskilling myself, getting confident in that. A big part of it is communicating well with the parents, because it's important that it's usually the moms are able to let me know in the morning, Johnny didn't sleep, and I don't have a Johnny in the class. Johnny didn't sleep well last night, and then I know that, so I can take that into account. Or he's not feeling very well, let me know if I need to pick him up, that kind of thing. Also, parents have their own journey, so by the time their child starts in first year in secondary school, it's the start of a whole new journey for them then again. So whatever they got used to in primary school, the rules all change again. So I found that communicating well with the parents.
So have students ever approached you about being insecure about their diagnosis? And if so, what advice did you give them?
Being insecure?
Insecure, yeah.
I've never, no. Usually people seem happy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I have. There's a kind of a relief has come with it. And again, by the time they're coming in first year, most students have, they've had their diagnosis. So they've probably been in a special class or a unit in primary school. And they might be taking medication for it or going for extra help with the mental health resources in the county. So they're kind of used to it. Insecure, I suppose no teenager especially wants to feel different, but I feel we're very lucky in our school in that there are so many different kinds of people that there's place for everybody. Yeah.
When managing or dealing with the children that you would deal with, were your expectations
of their parents and of the students would be. So I would have thought, we'll say that Johnny should be in Neidín most of the time in a very small class, whereas maybe their parents expect them to be in Neidín very little, or vice versa. So it's about knowing what the expectations are, and of the student themselves and of the teachers. Yeah.
Of course. What's your favourite part of the job?
My favourite part of the job is feeling that I make a difference, hopefully, that I help people feel less insecure, like you say, or less square peg round hole. In part of their programme is sensory circuits, which is helping regulate and calm and de-stress. And we're so lucky we have the National Park across the road, and nearly all of the students in Neidín benefit from being in nature and exercise.
So the final question is, for those considering going into your profession, what advice do you give them?
I think it's great to keep your options as wide as you can when you're starting out. So not to kind of paint yourself into a corner as being the geography teacher, or I've been lucky, I suppose. I've been able to change my job within the job.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off working with adults in a resource centre, and then went to a different resource centre, and then in my job in the community college I was a resource teacher. Then I evolved into teaching big classes of English, then went into the SD class. So and I think with each new challenge, although it can be terrifying, it brings new energy with it as well.
Of course. Thank you very much.
My total pleasure. Thank you, guys.